Right, good evening. Thank you for joining us. We are now getting information about the portfolios. Remember, yesterday we had the oath taking and we were keeping a close eye to figure out which minister will get which ministry berth, but we didn't know. The information is now starting to trickle out. This is not the official information from the government yet. This is source based information that's now come out into the media. Gathering from organizations like the Times of India, the Indian Express, NDTV, this is what we know so far. Let me just read through. The big four, which is Ministry of Home, retained by Amit Shah, Defense, Rajnath Singh, Nitin Gadkari keeps transport, Nirmala Sitharaman keeps finance. So these four remain unchanged. This is the big ones. Mr. Jaishankar keeps external affairs. Manohar Lal Khattar, who was the former Chief Minister of Haryana, has now been given Ministry of Power. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the former Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, has now been given Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Ashwini Vaishnav has got Information and Technology, Information and Broadcasting, not IT, but INB. And we don't know yet where the Railways Ministry has been allotted. NDTV says Chirag Paswan has been given sports. India Today is saying Mansukh Mandavia, so we don't know that one clearly as well. Kiran Rijiju has been given Parliamentary Affairs. We also have C.R. Patil, Minister of Jal Shakti, according to NDTV. Ram Mohan Naidu of TDP at Civil Aviation. Dharmendra Pradhan retains Ministry of Education, according to NDTV. Bhupendra Yadav, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate. Annapurna Devi, the second woman in the cabinet after the finance minister, has been given Ministry of Women and Child Development. JP Nadda, Health and Family Welfare. Hardeep Puri, Petroleum. H.D. Kumaraswamy, Heavy Industries and Steel. This is according to India Today. Prahlad Joshi, Food, Consumer Affairs and Renewable Energy. And Giriraj Singh has been given Textiles. We're going to bring you more information. But first, let me just introduce my guest, Mr. Javed Ansari, who's a very senior journalist, joins me right now to help us understand what all of these names mean. Mr. Ansari, Mr. Rajan Mahan is also here. Both very senior journalists. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Uh, Mr. Ansari, is the messaging here largely that nothing has changed and the BJP's government is not weakened by a coalition in any way? Things are going to continue as was. Is that the message?
Well, that's the effort, certainly. It also means business as usual. So it will continue at the same pace. No major more policy changes either. One would have expected that at least agriculture and food processing, especially finance. One was looking at a change in finance, and there was a strong buzz that finally Piyush Goyal will get the ministry that that appears tailor-made for him given his background, which is finance. But Prime Minister Modi has chosen to stick with Nirmala Sitharaman. There is nothing there that quickens the pulse. Chirag Paswan gets sports ministry. I don't know what kind of games he's ever indulged in, but nonetheless, Jyotiraditya Scindia divested of civil aviation.
Yes.
Jyotiraditya Scindia, despite the fact that he defected from the Congress, he was a good dynamic minister. He was thinking on his feet, always, he brought a lot of raw energy to that ministry. Now, where they will adjust him, one doesn't really know. Very little is known of Mr. Ram Mohan, of the new civil aviation minister's expertise in that sector. So all in all, I mean, nothing here that quickens the pulse. Jaishankar continues as foreign affairs. Maybe they could have, just reshuffled the pack. Hardeep Puri has also been a career diplomat. He could have been brought into the Ministry of External Affairs. Jaishankar shifted somewhere. Nirmala Sitharaman, maybe. So, like I said, it's business as usual. I hope there are policy changes. I hope there is focus. I hope they focus on the farmers' distress and joblessness, which has cost them dearly in this country, dearly in this election.
Mr. Mahan, picking up from what Mr. Ansari said, and going by the fact that the BJP tends to be very good at listening to feedback, incorporating, quickly sort of thinking on its feet. What is your response to these names that we've just heard? And do you expect business will continue as usual, or are there going to be changes in sort of tone, behavior, things like that?
Well, Faye, good evening. From what one sees in this list and the way things are being allocated and the way overall Mr. Modi is trying to manage the situation, I think I mean, he realizes that things are changing and India has changed, but he wants to give the impression of continuity. He wants, you see, his problem is that he's become this larger than life sort of figure. He's created this aura of invincibility. All of that at a certain level, actually, if it didn't get smashed, it certainly got diminished in many, many ways on the 4th of June. And now he has to run this coalition. His whole effort is to try and protect that grand aura that has been created over the past 10 years. I am the big one. I am around. मैं हूं ना, मेरे को सुनो, मैं सब कर लूंगा. Everything will be done. So he's trying to create that impression. And I think the BJP's insistence that they would not disturb any of the top four. The big four have been retained by the BJP. Well, some of it comes from the fact of numbers itself. I mean, they have, such a huge, within the NDA, their presence is so larger than life. But at the same time, they have to now accommodate their allies. They have to now keep people like Chandrababu Naidu or Nitish Kumar in good humor. They have, so, they have to accommodate all of these people, whether they like it or they don't like it. The fact is that they have to run this coalition. So things are not as they were, but Mr. Modi is definitely trying to create that impression that everything is hunky-dory, the alliance is going very well, we are all friends and pals, and there's going to be no issues in running this coalition government. The reality is that it took them 24 hours and more to try and cobble together who's going to get what, right? And secondly, Mr. Modi trying to project this image of continuity, nothing is going to change, etc., then begs the question, if nothing is changing, then how is India going to improve on what we've seen over the past 10 years? How is he listening to the mandate of the people? I mean, is he listening? Is anybody in the BJP listening? I think the insistence on not making any changes in the big four was primarily to project this whole things are as they were, business as usual, nothing has changed, there's continuity, Modi's in the saddle, Modi's going to run the country, there is no change. This is something that they need to send out to to the millions of admirers that Mr. Modi has, and many of them within the media also, who almost are like the Bhakt Brigade hanging around in this country and posing a kind of threat to India's democracy. Because for a democracy to function and flourish, you need the people at the top to start listening to what's happening on the ground. What is it that their colleagues, the people at large, really are looking for? I think somewhere Mr. Modi is not wanting to listen. It does give me that impression. And the names that have come are not particularly inspiring, to be very honest, Faye.
Okay, so the official press release is now out. I'd like to read out of it some very interesting developments. So first, obviously, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, PMO, Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances, Pensions, Atomic Energy, Space, all important policy issues and other portfolios that are not allocated. Mr. Rajnath Singh, Defense, Amit Shah, Home Affairs and Ministry of Cooperation, Nitin Gadkari, Road Transport, JP Nadda, Health, Family Welfare, Chemicals and Fertilizers. I want to put a pin in that and I'll come back to ask you about that. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Agriculture, Farmers, Rural Development. Nirmala Sitharaman, Finance and Corporate Affairs. Jaishankar, External Affairs. Manohar Lal Khattar, I'm assuming this is Ministry of Home and Urban and Power. Kumaraswamy, Heavy Industries and Steel. Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry. There's no promotion there. He remains in his former job. That made the Pradhan, Ministry of Education. Again, I want to know if technically this forms a promotion or not for him. Jitan Ram Manji, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Or Lalan Singh, Ministry of Panchayat Raj, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy. There's Portugal. Kinjarupa Ram Mohan Naidu has been given Civil Aviation, Prahlad Joshi, Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Renewable Energy, Giriraj Singh, Textiles, Railways, Ashwini Vaishnav retains Railways. Along with that, he has additional charge of INB Ministry and IT. So he's been given Ministry of Electronics, Ministry of Information Broadcast, and Railways. That's a giant. Those are three important ministries.
Clearly Mr. Modi's favorite minister.
Yes, yes. Jyotiraditya Scindia, Ministry of Communications and Development of the Northeast region. I find it interesting that this was not given to Kiran Rijiju, who has been given Parliamentary Affairs, Bhupendra Yadav, Forest Climate Change, Rajendra Singh Shekhawat, Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Annapurna Devi, Women and Child, Kiran Rijiju, Parliamentary Affairs and Minority Affairs, Hardeep Singh Puri, Petroleum Natural Gas, Mansukh Mandavia, Labour and Employment, Kishan Reddy, Coal and Mines, Chirag Paswan, Food Processing, not sports. Mansukh Mandavia has Youth Affairs and Sports. And this is an interesting thing because remember, India has a bid for the Olympics that the Prime Minister was feeling very positive about. That will come under now Mansukh Mandavia. And C.R. Patil, Jal Shakti. After that, there's independent charge. And we'll share this on the screen, but let me take this point by point. I first want to ask you about J.P. Nadda, who used to be BJP president, has now been made Minister of Health, Chemical and Fertilizer. Is that a promotion in your opinion, Mr. Ansari?
Well, it's certainly not a demotion. His term as president is coming to an end. The only promotion he could have got was if he had got into the Big Four, which they've chosen not to shuffle or tinker with. So therefore, it's fine. He's held this ministry before, if I'm not mistaken. And JP Nadda is now, in fact, a lot of people were speculating whether JP Nadda will at all make it to the ministry, given the fact that the RS, he certainly is not the blue-eyed boy any longer, given his statement during the middle of the election saying that the BJP has become Atmanirbhar and doesn't need the RSS's crushes. So the RSS was pretty miffed that he's been retained and that he's been given a place in the Union Ministry. Well, JP Nadda is normally a soft-spoken, very genial kind of person, thinks before he speaks, but sometimes, when you get to power, it goes to your head, and maybe he just overshot his brief, or maybe he was asked to say what he said. Of course, the end result is that the BJP has ended up paying a price for this, because every decision, everything that you say, every policy decision that you make has consequences, and we know what the consequences are then.
Well, the other one I want to ask you about, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Ministry of Agriculture, Farmer Welfare, Rural Development. Again, Mr. Chauhan plays a really important role in Madhya Pradesh first, and then in the result the BJP has got from Madhya Pradesh in this election as well. Is this, does this put him high up enough? He's been placed at number 5 above Nirmala Sitharaman, but Ministry of Agriculture enough, does it do justice to his skill? Mr. Mahan?
Well, I think at one level they had to accommodate him because of his massive victory, because of his long-term sort of performance in Madhya Pradesh, because of his popularity. He secured one of the biggest victories in the whole country. So in that sense, the other interesting thing is that they're giving him agriculture, because that's a challenging ministry for this government. The farmers' protests we've seen. And I think one of the reasons why they may have given it to him is because he's one of those who's seen as a soft-spoken person, as a person who kind of tends to listen to others. So the dialogue and the interaction that needs to be done with farmer groups and their organizations is something that a Shivraj Chauhan, given his temperament, his personality, the way he listens to people, responds to them a little more positively than many of the ministers in the Modi government in the last 10 years have been doing. So I think this is an interesting choice. And of course, politically, they brought in Shivraj Chauhan because they don't want to make him the BJP president. That's pretty obvious. I mean, if he won an election and they didn't put him as chief minister in Madhya Pradesh, just like they didn't want Vasundhara Raje in Rajasthan as the chief minister anymore, that tells you of the kind of equations that a person like, say, Shivraj Chauhan has with the top two. Okay, because I'm mentioning the top two because that's the kind of impression for the last 10 years that has been generated. That's the impression that within the BJP has also upset so many people. Now they have to run this coalition. They're trying to send out the, business as usual kind of a message by keeping Mr. Amit Shah in the Home Ministry. You know very well, all of us know who are, sort of observers of the political circles and the political scene in the country, that the intense pressure was being built both by the RSS and by the allies that they need to get a new person in the Home Ministry. And then, of course, the Prime Minister has come out with this great argument that we will have no change in the big four, which is an interesting way of protecting and ensuring that Amit Shah is not shifted around. So, and he's not sort of.
Yes.
There was also this buzz that he might go in as the BJP president. So all of that has been finished. In fact, Shivraj Chauhan being brought in now raises the whole question of who's going to be the next BJP president.
In fact, there's a story today about the fact that the Eknath Shinde Shiv Sena was also unhappy because they were given, a junior ministry. They were given Ministry of State independent charge, and they didn't want it. They wanted cabinet. And the question was, how come Chirag Paswan with fewer seats, tally to the NDA gets cabinet and we don't? So they seemed unhappy there. We know the Ajit Pawar faction is also unhappy. So trouble in Maharashtra there. So even though the BJP would like to show that the alliances are all together, they're still in the process of bringing everybody on board and finding room for everyone. But would you say, either of you, by looking at this list, that the two alliance partners have driven an impressive enough bargain? Mr. Ansari, there's one TDP name I saw. I'm still looking for the other alliance partners. We saw Chirag Paswan. But does it seem like the alliance partners were driving the kind of bargain that was sort of rumored? Or it seems to me that they're much softer than we had expected?
Look, portfolios is not something certainly TDP is looking for. TDP wants special status, as does Mr. Nitish Kumar. So here there is little evidence of hard bargaining. The hard bargaining will probably come over the speakership, who gets to become the speaker of the 18th Lok Sabha. It's unlikely that JDU will get that post, although they would love it, because they already have the deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha happens to be from the JDU, and he's been there, go between in all their in all the communication between JDU and Mr. Modi, even at a time when JDU had crossed over to the Mahagathbandhan side. So it's unlikely that they will get this pivotal post, this important post, even in the Lok Sabha. Naidu, if you remember, earlier when Mr. Bajpayee was Prime Minister and he was part of NDA, he had his nominee, Mr. Balayogi, become the Speaker of the House. So there, my guess is that the bargaining will take place there. But the real issue for them, the real concern for them, is a special package status, because both.
Yes, just to tell you where the alliance partners have been accommodated. Rajiv Ranjan Singh or Lalan Singh who is from the JDU, has been given Panchayat Raj, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy. We also have Ramnath Thakur, Minister of State for Agriculture, and Ram Mohan Naidu from the TDP, who's been given Civil Aviation. Also Chirag Paswan, which I already told you, Food and Processing, and Jitin Ram Manji, who is from the Hindustan Awam Morcha, who's been given Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Kumaraswamy, as we know. So this is where the alliance partners are right now.
What about Ramdas Atavale?
We don't have his name so far, actually. You're right. That's a bit of a surprise. Let me just check Ramdas Atavale. Oh, there he is. So he is he's Minister of State for Social Justice and Empowerment. Mr. Mahan, do you expect that the negotiation, and it was interesting also when the TDP has asked for speaker, apparently some of the rumors say Congress is going to support TDP's sort of bid for speaker. Tell us what that would mean on the floor.
Well, I mean, in terms of whether the alliance partners have actually got very prominent ministries, no, it does not look like that. Yes, JDU has managed a number of ministries which seem to be Panchayati Raj and agriculture, that whole farming sector, because that's something that will be useful for them in Bihar. But honestly, Faye, the way I see it, I think the trade-off is that at the central level, by and large, these the allies may not make too much of demands. They may not, I mean, in terms of ministries and what policies, etc., except for maybe one or two places where they might. But ideally, it's looking like a trade-off. Mr. Modi does what he likes to do at the center, and Nitish Kumar does exactly what he wants to do in Bihar, and Chandrababu Naidu does exactly what he wants to do in Andhra Pradesh, and the center supports them with larger grants, maybe a special status or what have you. So I tend to agree with Ansari Bhai that where we may see a tussle actually is the speaker's post, because the outgoing speaker is from my state, Om Birla, hardly scored a very impressive victory this time around, barely managing a win by about 40,000 odd votes, though he's a favorite with especially Amit Shah, and that relationship goes back to more than a decade. It goes to those study power kind of days, etc., etc. The horrible, horrific memories that they're trying to erase, not just for themselves, but for the entire country. But the reality is that Om Birla was, I mean, in Rajasthan, the big buzz was that he was chosen because he was quite a surprise choice in 2019. And he's not such a, he didn't have the kind of stature that you need for somebody to become the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. But he was chosen primarily because of his closeness, of course, loyalty, but closeness to Amit Shah, and the fact that, when Mr. Shah was sort of Taripar from Gujarat, he stayed on Om Birla's farmhouse, etc., etc., and hence has this one. So it'll be interesting to see whether they will sacrifice Om Birla. Are they then planning to, if they're forced to sacrifice, then are they going to accommodate him in the BJP president position? What are they going to do with Om Birla? They're certainly not being brought into the ministry. So it's interesting times. And I think the tussle, as Javed Bhai said, is probably going to be around the speaker's position. And I haven't really been tracking the Congress so much, but it'll be an interesting move if the Congress actually, if there is a TDP candidate and then the Congress goes ahead and supports that, that'll be a very smart move, because do remember, this is a fragile coalition. No matter how much they're trying to project that everything is hunky-dory, they have enough seats, etc., etc., but two partners going can lead to a collapse of the government. So it is a fragile coalition. It'll be interesting to see how the Congress tries to woo TDP and Nitish Kumar. Faye?
Mr. Do you expect a shuffle of this? Is this just a preliminary list, and in a year's time an expansion or a shuffle or some sort of change?
It's very hazardous to try and second guess this prime minister. So I would refrain from making a guess either which way. I really don't know. But as far as Mr. Om Birla is concerned, he was a rather controversial speaker, didn't really cover himself in glory. And bear in mind the composition of this house. There are 235 odd opposition MPs in this house of 543. The BJP no longer enjoys the kind of brute majority it did earlier, where it could ram through, bulldoze people. Let's not forget that it is under Mr. Birla's stewardship of the House that 140 MPs of Parliament for the first time in India's 75-year history were suspended from Parliament. So therefore, if the BJP wants a harmonious relationship or a less acrimonious relationship with the opposition, Mr. Birla, with due respect to him, will certainly not be the right choice. Also, the choice of Mr. Kiran Rijiju, he was extremely combative and controversial as as the law minister. He just took on the judiciary for no rhyme or reason, and it was as a result of which that that he was shunted out and somebody else was brought in. First Mr. Baghel and then somebody else. Mr. Baghel, an absolutely unknown commodity, very little to do with law. He was a sub-inspector in the UP police. He was Mulayam Singh's PSO, the PSO attached to Mulayam Singh when he was chief minister. It comes from the EBC community, SAK, and therefore was, and has made his way up. So they will have to tread very carefully when it comes to the role of the choice of the speaker. And Congress, there is talk that the opposition may support, not just the Congress, but the India bloc may support a TDP speaker. This is an investment. This would be, if they do so, this would be an investment for the future. This is called the art of real politics. It will be an investment, because either which way, they do not have the numbers to force their own man as speaker. So you might as well curry favor with the TDP, have somebody who's not hardcore BJP, have him there. Mr. Balayogi took his time to find his feet, but was a fairly balanced and speaker for the little time that he was. Unfortunately, he met with his helicopter crash and he died. But he was well liked all round. So it won't be a bad move at all on the part of the opposition, and for the government, if it wants the house to run, then they need somebody. They need somebody who has cross-party linkages. I don't know with due respect to Kiran Rijiju, if he has that, unless he's gone a personality transplant. Unless he's suddenly gone a personality transplant in the last 6 months, I don't know if he has the kind of skill sets needed.
Yeah. I also want to ask you about Jyotiraditya Scindia, who's been given development of Northeastern region. Is this a new ministry, Mr. Mahan?
Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely aware whether this is a new ministry. But if it is a new ministry, it begs the question: why is Kiran Rijiju not being given? He comes from that area, or somebody else who comes from that area. Why give it to Jyotiraditya Scindia? I mean, here is a guy who's essentially a Madhya Pradesh leader, essentially a North India Hindi belt kind of a character.
Yeah.
Why are you giving it to him? No, I just want to make the point, Faye, which is that, it is classical Narendra Modi. The way he runs his governments, it's almost as if by design you want to give people assignments in which they will not be able to excel. So you don't wish to give to somebody who may well excel in the Northeast. You want to give it away. So you run the show. The people who are there in the position to run a show are actually just the most unsuitable for that assignment. And that's how the choice of, I'm mystified. Why should Jyotiraditya Scindia be given Northeast? Why not somebody from the Northeast be given that assignment?
The other two people I thought would be given more or would be rewarded better. One, Dharmendra Pradhan, who has, we all thought he would be Chief Minister of Orissa, but he's been inducted into the cabinet as Minister of Education, so his fortunes have not largely changed. And I found that a little out of ordinary. And also, JP Nadda, I assumed that, the former president of the party would be rewarded in a different way. There's nothing particularly there for him. And then Mr. Piyush Goyal, who was sent out to win an election like a popular leader, managed to do so, has remained Ministry of Commerce and has not been given a bump up in any way. But Ashwini Vaishnav has been given 3 simultaneous promotions.
So, taking off from where Mr. Mahajan left, I think he's absolutely right. You serve at the mercy of His Majesty, not because of your skill sets, but because of the benediction granted by him. All these people have to be, Dharmendra Pradhan HRD ministry is not bad, and HRD ministry is very dear to the RSS. So that's why it's a pretty, it's a pretty heavyweight ministry and very important as far as the RSS is concerned, because they lay a great store in changing India's education system and the cultural curriculum, etc., etc. So for him, Mr. Nadda, he was president of the party by rotation because there was, but they still want to indicate to him that you got that far, but you still haven't broken into the big league. You have to be content with what we give you.
Apparently, Northeast is not a new ministry. It was formed in 2001. The last cabinet was held by Kishan Reddy. That's not a new ministry. Just final question, comments from each of you. Mr. Mahan, you first. Go ahead.
Just one or two people.
Yes.
On this whole Nadda business, he's been brought into a ministry which is always a tricky ministry. Please look at the record of Harshvardhan, Dr. Harshvardhan, who was dropped. He was famously sort of, peeling peas in his house when India was reeling under the COVID threat. So, I mean, one is that Nadda's got a slightly tricky assignment. But do remember when we talk about, he was the BJP president and how come this is not important enough. Please do remember that he didn't become the BJP president because he was like a great stature, because he was highly popular leader, etc. It was because he was just picked up. And they want, in many important positions, just puppets who will do exactly their bidding and will not have the stature really to be able to do anything on their own. So I think that's he's actually been given a difficult assignment. In terms of the overall impression, frankly, while Modi is clearly interested in projecting that everything is fine, things are under control, main hu na, main sab kar lunga, don't worry about it, India, everything is going to be just the way it was in the past 10 years. No, not at all. Things have changed. The electoral verdict has come. The opposition has been strengthened. And you're now running a rather fragile coalition. You better be aware of that. I think the choices made are hardly the most inspiring. And to me, many of the ministers, I'd be interested, Faye, because what has Nitin Gadkari? I mean, yes, he's retained road transport, but has he got anything much more than that? Because he's clearly the favorite of the RSS. We all know that. But has he in any way been sort of, has his stature gone up at all?
No. Nitin Gadkari, Ministry of Road and Transport. Also, I want to point out, Piyush Goyal used to have commerce, industry and textiles. He's lost textiles. So now he only has commerce and industry.
And this tells you something about the government. I mean, once he's actually got the legitimacy, so far he was being seen as just, the favorite of the PM and the top two, etc., and never had any grassroots connect. Finally, he manages an electoral victory, and yet he's not actually being given any kind of a reward. Just tells you of the way things are functioning.
Given Piyush Goyal's personality and how well liked he is, and the fact that he has won an election at this point, I had expected him to be bumped up far higher, on this list than we're seeing him at this point. Also, for Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who retains railways, gets INB and gets information technology, Railways has a few problems right now going into this election. There have been a large number of very serious accidents, overcrowding, cleanliness is an issue, punctuality is a major issue in our railways right now. But that doesn't seem to have affected his fortunes, Mr. Ansari.
Yes, it has. Again, like I said, it's not skill sets, You're just placed there at the mercy of the emperor. And then you just look at the health ministry. Mr. Modi claims that every week there was a new AIMS which was being set up across the country. I hope Mr. Nadda stops laying foundation stones and actually starts building AIMS, building on those sites where those, starts work on those sites where foundation stones have been laid for.
Sorry, interrupt you, but another big story that we're working on is the issue that we're having with NEET admissions, right? There's a problem with the admissions for medical colleges. And for me personally, the issue is the fact that we don't have enough medical colleges of repute for students to go to. That's why the competition is now horrendous. We just have too many aspirants and not enough seats. Mr. Ansari, go ahead.
Yes, and one of the reasons why they haven't shaken up the big three, big four is because they want to to run a tight control over the CCS, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, Cabinet Committee on Defense, on Security Affairs, on appointments. So these top 4, 5 usually are members of that. And Mr. Gadkari should come as no surprise. He was by far the most prolific minister in this government, not just in this government. I could be wrong, but in my view, in my humble view, he was the best surface transport minister India has ever had since independence.
Absolutely. We have a comment from Aman, who's given us 1,000 rupees. Thanks, Aman. He says, as someone from the industry, Piyush Goyal was amazing. He's always worked to improve industry, but this move may stop all of that. Also, textiles is the second largest industry in terms of employment and the largest hire of skilled workers. I agree with you. I do believe that Piyush Goyal should have been given more responsibility in this term. We've come to the end of the time that we had allotted to have this conversation. Any other comments or observations you'd like to add, Mr. Ansari? Go ahead.
I'm surprised that Bhupender Yadav hasn't got any heavy duty responsibility, heavy duty ministry. Actually, he would have been ideally suited as Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. In the Raj Sabha, where the numbers are fairly evenly matched, he was the one who used to hold these backroom negotiations. He was the one who used to try to bridge over differences and try and find common ground between the opposition and the treasury benches. He's the only one that the opposition actually has some kind of faith in. Instead of my friend Rijiju, they ought to have had Bhupender Yadav. He would have been a far better parliamentary affairs minister. Because given the numbers in the Lok Sabha, this is going to be a very bitter, very fractious house. Running it will be very, very difficult. So in addition to
Sorry. Yeah. Jyotiraditya Scindia has been given Minister of Communications. Does this include telecom? Is that the communications?
Yes, telecommunications.
Okay, so that's a big one then.
Yeah, that's a good one for him.
Okay, so you are saying Kiran Rijiju right now been given, parliamentary affairs, and the parliamentary affairs minister will be in charge of not just bringing all alliance partners on board for every move, but also negotiating backroom with the opposition benches to make sure that the opposition benches don't stall everything going through parliament. And this is likely to be a nature of this term in the sense that the opposition is fairly strong at a number of 232. So they will then put a spanner in the works every time the BJP is trying to move something. Mr. Mahan?
Oh, exactly. And which is why, the portfolio allocation has hardly been the most inspiring or the most interesting story that we are hearing. I think the most interesting story is going to now play itself out on the choice of the speaker. So it'll be interesting. Rijuju, I don't know, used to come across initially as a very likable, bright young fellow, but then somewhere he's kind of gone a little awry, if I may say that, because instead of being this likable young man that he appeared to be, he's become far too combative in the last few years. So I think Rijuju is not the greatest choice. Yes, Bhupender Yadav could have been, and here's another example of somebody who gets popular legitimacy. Bhupender Yadav is a Rajya Sabha member so far. He's now won from my state. He's won the Lok Sabha election from Alwar seat in Rajasthan. He gets a greater sort of, legitimacy for himself as a politician. And what will we be seeing? He's not getting the most exciting or the most important kind of portfolio. And one final word about this choice of Dharmendra Pradhan as the education minister. To be very honest, Faye, the HRD ministry is being run entirely not from Delhi but from Nagpur. I mean, any academic worth his salt who has a sense of honesty, would tell you that all major decisions are coming. So in that sense, Pradhan being brought in just tells you that he has a good equation. I think they're trying to rebuild that relationship with the RSS by putting in their nominee in a certain sense into the HRD ministry. So while they've taken this publicly a kind of a combative situation, combative sort of posture when Mr. Nadda said that the BJP is now Atmanirbhar and they're not particularly dependent on the RSS. Well, they've seen the results of that, and possibly a move to try and somehow patch up that those frictions and those tensions that have gone on in the recent months. So the big thing is not so much these portfolio allocation. It will be the tussle will probably happen over the speaker's post, and that is critical now.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much. I know that I dragged you out on short notice because we found out suddenly that these details were coming out. And it's always a pleasure to speak with the both of you. I have so much respect for all of the work you all have done in your careers and the analysis that you give us and our audience every time we sit down together. This is going to be, without a shadow of doubt, a very interesting parliament term to watch and to see how this parliament functions, because there's going to be a lot of negotiation, very different from the previous 2 terms. But also, I think the one silver lining positive that we must note here is when most of the ministers, the big ministers, retain their ministries, the transition period that would have happened with their teams, with their officers, the catch up and things like that, there's almost none of it. They're going to hope to sort of hit the ground running. Mr. Ansari, go ahead.
The problem in Parliament is not with the rest of the ministers. The problem in Parliament is with the big 2. Unless their attitude changes, this is going to be the most volatile, fractious, most belligerent Parliament we've seen in a long, long time.
All right, Mr. Ansari. This is going to be an interesting Parliament to watch, though, and I do promise our audience that we'll cover it very closely here on our YouTube page.
I'm afraid there may be very little to watch in this Parliament.
That's a good one. Also, Faye, if I may just add one slight note, where is Anurag Thakur and where are they planning to accommodate him? What's the buzz that you're hearing? Because thankfully, at least a minister who was famous essentially for his cricket administration and more so for those glorious Goli Maro slogans, etc., that were raised. So I think I'm wondering what is happening with him. Are they actually planning on bringing him in as the BJP president, or what are they planning to do with him?
No, at best, General Secretary, he's lost out to Nadda. Himachal has only 4 MPs, and you can't have 2 cabinet ministers from a state which just sends 4 MPs. So that's the reason. Because they had to adjust Nadda, so he lost out.
Yeah, because he put out a statement saying that he's just going to be an MP and he's not going to, I think, be in cabinet. All right, we have run out of time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And I do hope that we can continue talking. For our audience, remember, like, share, subscribe. And of course, sign up for our membership. You'll help us financially and you'll help us continue to do good work. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to continue to give you updates. Remember, download the Beetroot News app for news and updates and follow us on Instagram and on YouTube. Good night.